Now we're going to build the step 2 slide. So let's first put the title in. Before we do that, let's just go look at the storyboard and just make sure we know what we're going to do for this slide. So step 2, 1 ball. The on-screen text will be these bullet points here that we'll copy in later. And on the main screen, so that's what we're going to focus on in this video, is how to create the main screen. And then we'll look at how to create the slide layers after this. So on the main screen, we're going to have the avatar with the buttons here, and step 2 is now going to be highlighted in blue. The text will appear up in this top left corner as before. And then we'll also have this tip box here that we're going to use a mouse over to reveal more information. We're going to use it to reveal a tip that the learners can use. So let's first start by putting in the title, and then we'll copy in the avatar and the buttons, and then we'll put in the tip box. So let's just review these programming considerations here. The text will appear on screen as the narration plays, which will be triggered by cue points in the timeline. The ball will follow an arc animation path from one hand to the other 8 times. So we're going to show it going from one hand to the other because this step is focusing on juggling with one ball, so just basically throwing it from one hand to the other. And I have inserted a separate layer for this ball to show how it's thrown from one hand to the other. And the tip box is also a separate layer. It's called slide layer tip 1, which will be triggered when the learner hovers over it. So we'll get to the slide layers later, but this video is just going to focus on creating the main elements. So I'm going to type the title in here now. And then I'm going to bold it and make it the color that we've made all the other ones. There we go. And I'm going to delete this text box here. So go over here to the left-hand side and you can see it pop up when you hover over the box. So just click on it, and now we're on step 1. So I'm going to copy in just a few elements here. I'm going to copy the avatar and the buttons. That's all we really need, and we need the avatar in this position with her arms out at right angles. So I'm going to copy this one. And then I'm going to paste it in here. This is to make sure we get everything in the same spot each time to create the effect that we want. So when we click on each button, it's going to look like we're triggering the new information to pop up, but it's actually a separate slide. So I'm going to change the state of this button back to the normal state because its initial state right now is this blue color. So it's a selected state. So go down to states and see it says initial state selected. Now we're going to change that to normal. So now it's back to the pink color. And then I'm going to make step 2, the initial state, selected, and now it's blue. I'm also going to change her. So right now she's hidden, but we don't want her to be hidden. So now I've changed her to the normal state. Now let's go copy in the text boxes from the storyboard. So I want these to be copied in line by line like before. So we can start by either copying them in separately, or I could just take them all and then I'll separate them. And I'm going to paste it in. And you notice that it made some of the bullets black, so we'll just fix that. I'm just going to highlight all of this and go up here and go to bullets and numbering and just make sure it is white. There we go. And then since we want to have each one of these text boxes come in on their own with an animation, I'm going to separate them into separate text boxes. And then let's place them at the same spots that we did before. So I'll just highlight this one, and we're going to right click and go to size and position. And the placement from before was 24 pixels horizontal, so that's for all of them, so they're in the same place. And then this one will make 60 pixels vertical. All right, and the next one, we'll have that at 24 and 82. And this one, we'll have it 24 and 104. And the last one, we'll have it 24 and 126. There we go. So now all the text is lined up, all the bullet points are lined up. So let's go to the timeline now. Actually, let's just bring this up a bit here. And they go out to 15 seconds. So I guess we can leave that like that for now. So all the text boxes are here. And let's just create some arbitrary cue points, because each one of these text boxes is going to come in with an animation when we trigger it with a cue point in the timeline. So I'm just going to create arbitrary ones, and then later when we return to the slide, when we record the audio, we can place them at the correct spots. So remember, you can right click and hit cue point where the cursor here is, or you can hit C. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. And now let's go and change the state of the, so I'm just going to bring that down. Let's go change the state of the text boxes. So let's click on each one, and we want to make sure that the initial state is set to hidden, because we don't want it to show right away. And the last one here, change to hidden. All right, that's all set. So now let's go over to the right-hand side, and we're going to create triggers for each of the text boxes like we did for step 1. So each step we are going to have similar things to do. Because we're going to have the text coming in with the audio at cue points, we have to trigger it with the cue points in the timeline. So I'm going to create a trigger here to change the state of text box 1. So that's this one, the first one, to normal when the timeline reaches cue point 1. And then we'll create 3 more for each of the other text boxes. Change the state of text box 2 to normal when the timeline reaches cue point 2. And the next one, change the state of text box 3 when the timeline reaches cue point 3. And the last one, change the state of text box 4 to the normal state when the timeline reaches Q point 4. Now that we have these text boxes in here, I noticed because the way I separated them, I had separated this one first. This one, if you look down here in the timeline, it became text box number 2. So we need to just rename this. So right click and go to rename text box 4. And a similar thing happened with this one. It's labeled as text box 4, but we want that to be text box 2. So right click and rename. I'll just bring that down. And now over on the triggers that we already just set, let's just alter those. We just need to tweak those a bit. Now this happens when you're doing development, so it's actually good that this happens so I can show you how you need to troubleshoot as you go. So for this one, text box number 4, throw at your eyes closed. We want that to be triggered when the timeline reaches Q point 4. So let's edit it. So go up to this pencil right here to edit it and change the Q point to 4. And then with the arms at right angles text box right here, we want that to be triggered at Q point number 2. So go to edit and change that to Q point 2. All right, so now let's just preview this slide. And we just have to wait till those text boxes come in. And there you see the first one, second one, third one, and fourth one. Okay, so we fixed our little problem there. So let's move on to the next step. All right, now let's verify the buttons to make sure that the triggers are going to the right spot. They should be because we copied them from the previous step, but let's just do a verification check. So button 1 goes to step 1, that's correct. Button 2 jumps to step 2. Well, we're on step 2, but it's set. Button 3 goes to step 3. Button 4, step 4, and button 5, step 5. So that should all work correctly. So now let's just go back to the storyboard. And the next part is to create this tip box right here that's going to go in the right hand corner. So we're going to create that right now. We're not going to do this part though. This part will be in a slide layer, so the text that actually shows will be in a slide layer, but we're just going to create the box. So I'm going to go over to Insert, Shapes, and I'm going to choose this one. You can choose whatever you want. I just decided on this, the folded corner one. And I'm going to draw that right here, and I'm just going to arbitrarily set it. It doesn't really matter. And then let's change the color because we don't want it to be orange. So let's go over to Format, and let's go down here. You can pick whatever you want. I'm going to choose this one, and then I'm going to write tip in it, in the box. I'm going to bold that, and I'm just going to make it a bit bigger. Okay, and now I'm just going to go to the timeline, and I'm going to make sure that we extend this to the end so that it's, so this box here, I'm just going to move this so it extends for the whole length of this slide. There we go. All right, and our last step here in this video for the main screen for step 2 is just to make sure our play triggers here, so the ones that trigger on the next and the previous buttons, go to the proper slide. So the next button is going to go to step 3, and the previous button will go to step 1. And there we go. So in the next video, I'm going to show you how to create the slide layers that will be associated with this main screen for step 2. So that will include the text box that's going to pop up when you mouse over the tip here. And it'll also include the ball that she's going to throw. So this is for juggling one ball or throwing one ball from one hand to the other. So it'll include that as well.